Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to today's webinar, Too Good to Waste, Ending Food Waste in Australia. Before we start, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today. I would also like to pay my respects to elders, past and present. I'm Nick Cork, I'll be your host today, and I work with food businesses involved in the Australian Food Pact. Also with me today are Dr. Gami Karunasena and Francesca Goodman-Smith from our Fight Food Waste Cooperative Research Centre. So tomorrow is the International Day of Awareness of Food Loss and Waste. And to mark the occasion, we'll be providing you with three things today. Firstly, an overview of why food waste is important and matters to all of us. Secondly, some tips and information to help you start to reduce your food waste. And thirdly, some ways to connect with us and get involved in Australia's fight to end food waste. In July this year, the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres said that global food systems are broken and billions of people are paying the price. Today, ahead of the 4th International Day of Awareness of Food Loss and Waste, we'll examine the extent of food waste both globally and here in Australia. We'll review the impact that food waste has on our planet, the people, and our economy, and why this matters to all of us. Being aware of a problem is one thing, but feeling empowered to do something about it is even better. So after presenting the challenge, we will also provide you with information and tips to enable you to take action towards making a difference for yourself, your community, and your planet. Why should we care about food waste? Well, at the most basic level, it represents a massive inefficiency in our food system. Around a third of all food produced globally is wasted, at the same time as almost 1 billion people worldwide don't have sufficient food to eat. Food that is not eaten, that ends up in landfill, breaks down to release methane, a greenhouse gas which is 25 times more potent than carbon dioxide. Because of this, if global food waste were a country, it would be the third largest greenhouse gas emitter after the US and China. This is happening across the globe and at every stage of the supply and consumption of food. In our homes, we throw away 1 in 3 bags of groceries, but it's not just consumers that bear the cost of food waste. Every business involved in the food supply chain is also losing or wasting perfectly edible food. The Australian food system is a powerhouse of production, growing and making enough food to feed 75 million people. Our fresh produce is in high demand for its quality and freshness. Our food businesses export delicious products to multiple international markets. It really is too good to waste. But there are inefficiencies in our system, from farm to fork. Each year we waste 7.6 million tonnes of food, which has a massive environmental, social, and economic impact on our country. Environmentally, this wasted food generates 17.5 million tonnes of CO2 equivalent a year, which is around 3% of our total national greenhouse gas emissions. Socially, 1 in 6 adults and 1.2 million children experience food insecurity on a regular basis, and a significant number of families in our communities need the help of food rescue charities to put food on the table. Economically, food loss and waste costs our economy over $36 billion a year. Now, these issues are not going to resolve themselves. Globally, we're heading into a perfect storm of rising population, a growing middle class, increasing levels of urbanization, and increased climate risks. These factors all put pressure on the global food systems and on the availability of finite resources such as water, land, and energy, all of which affect and are impacted by climate change. Now, these are some of the reasons why this affects us all. Climate change and its impacts are being felt now, and many of the potential solutions seem too difficult or in the realms of science fiction. Food waste, however, is an issue that can be addressed now by anyone and everyone. And taking action to reduce food waste can be directly linked to reducing emissions. Australia is ahead of many other countries in tackling food waste. Our Cooperative Research Centre is the largest in the world. The Australian Food Pact as many of our largest food businesses working on reducing food waste across the supply chain. However, as of November 2022, there are already over 8 billion people on the planet, and we only have 7 years left to achieve our target of halving food waste by 2030. So there really is no time to waste. We need everyone's help to tackle this issue. The good news is that everyone can take action to help. We're all consumers. Some of us also work directly in the food industry or its supply chain. Each of us therefore has a role to play in tackling food waste, and we can start to make a difference today. With that in mind, I shall pass on to my colleague, Dr. Gami Karunasena, who will share with you her latest research to help you get started on the road to becoming a food waste warrior at home. Over to you, Gami.
Thank you, Nick. Sorry, Nick. Thank you, Nick. I've got control of it. Thank you. So yes, as Nick mentioned, households contribute to a very large amount of the total waste that is being generated in Australia. Roughly 50% of the waste comes from 50% of the value of total waste. That is around $19.3 billion of waste comes from consumers. So it's really important to focus on the households and the rest of the community to see what we can do to reduce food waste. With that in mind, the Food Waste Cooperative research studying what the consumers are doing and how we can stop food being wasted in their households. So we did the most comprehensive research into household food waste in the last few years, and now we know what behaviors are driving food waste, what products are driving food waste, and what are the beliefs consumers have around food waste. So as you can see on the screen, people underestimate their food waste considerably. When you look at the survey data that we collected, we saw that consumers feel that they don't like to waste, but someone else is doing that waste. So the problem is they're not aware that they are the reason that food is being wasted. So we need to make sure that awareness side is highlighted, and we need to interventions need to focus on creating more awareness around individuals' efforts. Food waste is a problem when it's sent to landfills. However, if you feed to the pets or you compost it, that's not a problem. Let me correct that belief, because food that is consumed, that is developed for human consumption, is to expand human potential. There are lots of other inedible food components of food that can be composted, which is good, but our target should be to avoid food waste in the first place. So that doubt needs to be cleared in people's mind. Also, as Nick mentioned, food waste, when put into landfills, releases the potent gas methane, which leads to climate change. And not many people were in our surveys were aware that food waste led to climate change. So with that in mind, we try to identify what were the key behaviors that were driving food to be wasted. Nick, can we go to the next one? Next slide. Thank you. So we looked at around 40 behaviors where food is being wasted by different consumers due to different reasons. And of those 40 behaviors, we identified 7 behaviors that need to be prioritized by consumers. So preparing right amount of food to starting with small portions are those 7 behaviors. And what I've presented here are based on the priority of the impact that these behaviors make on food waste. So if you're looking at the right amount of food that needs to be wasted, right amount of food that needs to be cooked, we need to look at portion calculators, or checking with your family who is in their households to before you cook your meals. If at all you take 2 or 3 tips from this session of the presentation, what I would ask you to do is start with a meal plan. Do a meal plan. If you're new to meal planning, maybe start with 3 days, or if you're good with meal planning, start with 4 days. What it means is you take a look at how many meals you're going to have. So if you're looking at 3 meals per day and then 3 days, so 9 meals you need to plan for. And then you need to check with your households who is at home to have these meals. Do we have going out for dinners or lunches, office parties, or whether you're planning to do a takeout or home delivery? You need to accommodate for these things in your meal plan. So you make sure you look at those things when you plan for meals. Why I said you need to plan for 3 to 4 days is because of a special reason. So this is something anyone can do really, really easily. So I hope going forward from today onwards, you will start and focusing on this next behavior that I'm trying to encourage you to perform. That is to have a leftovers day. Okay, so when you think of preparing your meals, there'll always be leftovers because you might not be able to identify the exact amount that per person would eat, or you would have this unexpected event happening, or you felt like doing a takeout or home delivery, so you have this food that is either cooked or not cooked, just as in ingredients. So leftovers day is the best day to use this. So if you're thinking of a full week, maybe Thursday can be your leftovers day, where you use up all of your leftover cooked ingredients as well as uncooked ingredients into a meal, and you have it, or you take it to work, or you can share it during the next day. So that's the plan for the leftovers. That's a very, very easy task anyone can do. The other thing that I would encourage everyone to do is allocate a use it up shelf or use it up area, or you can call it, label it as Eat Me First area in your fridge and the pantry. Because then you can put all the ingredients, all the products that you've opened, for example, a can of tomatoes or a packet of chips or some cheese. You can put all of that into this use it up shelf and get everyone to consume that first. If one person is the main provider in the house and who's engaging in the most of the behaviors of food provisioning behaviors, then the others might not know what needs to be used first. So having a use it up area in your fridge and the cupboard helps everyone to understand what products need to be used first, and organizing it by the date of expiry, what goes off first, would help everyone to focus on what needs to be eaten first at your households. Then we moved on to the next area, which is the products. Nikki, if you can go to the next slide. Thank you. When it comes to before we looked at the products, we looked at the product categories. When it comes to the product categories that are mostly wasted, these 5 are the mostly wasted product categories, of which meat and seafood, fresh vegetables and herbs are the most wasted product categories. In the next slide, I will look at the product-based interventions. Nick, if you can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So we looked at 745 products, and based on those 740 products, we've identified 15 products that need to be prioritized for interventions because they are the most wasted products. If you look at these products, which you can see on the screen, you might notice that these are some of the products that are hidden in your fridge that you might not notice, or it goes into the freezer after you cook it, and now there is an unidentifiable frozen object in your freezer that you are not able to consume. So looking at these products, you can have product-based interventions. Whether you're a consumer or an organization, these are products that you can prioritize. So for consumers, if you're having bread, if bread is something that you're wasting mostly at your households, freezing bread and taking up a slice when you need and put it into the toaster and toasting and using it would help reduce the waste and extending the life of the product. So I'm focusing on the freezer, not the refrigerator, because freezing bread would extend its life as opposed to refrigerating bread. If you're looking at cooked beef or cooked chicken, which are two of the most wasted proteins, focus on the leftovers day. On your leftovers day, these items can be put into a fried rice, tacos, a burrito, a sandwich, and there is or a stir fry. There are so many ways you can use these products. In my household, I always go for a stir fry or a fried rice because you can put anything into that and create a meal out of it, which also saves you time, but also money because you're now not wasting so much food. And if you're focusing on the saving of money from food that you're not wasting, roughly you could say Australian households waste around $2,000 to $2,500 worth of food. So this is something you can save and probably spend on a good holiday with your family. Moving on to the next slide, Nick. We also looked at who are the main groups or segments who are wasting food. And we identified 3 segments. Of the 3 segments, overproviders are families with kids, and they start with a meal plan, which is great, but their meal plan does not sometimes consider the leftover days. It does not consider eating out, or it does not consider home delivery. So it changes quite often, and there's leftovers in their households. They don't eat their leftovers. They tend to cook more as well in general. And when they go to the shops, they tend to buy more as well. So these are some of the behaviors that are driving overproviders with children under 17 of age living in their households to waste more. And this is a category that really needs our help. We all know when you have kids at home, it's really hard to organize your meals. So helping them with planning their meals, encouraging them to use up a leftovers day, 2 of the things that you can do to help them become better. When I say planning, considering all those unexpected events, getting them to consider those unexpected events in their plan is so important. Underplanners are generally younger audiences. They are singles living in their households, and they're generally disengaged with most of the behaviors. So motivating them to start planning is something we need to do. Considerate planners are doing most of the things correct, although they are also still wasting. So getting them to focus on the fact that they are still wasting and helping them identify how they could do better are some of the things we can do to all segments. Moving to the next slide. Thanks. So with these insights we've gathered through our research around behaviors, product categories, and consumers, what did we do next? We actually went and tested them. So we helped 3 organizations, whom you can see here, to plan, implement, and evaluate their interventions. And the results were really good. Results are published on the Fight Food Waste CRC under these 2 reports. So we've got a toolkit to help organizations to design their interventions and evaluate. We've also got case studies based on these 3 organizations to help you understand how these interventions can be planned, organized, and implemented. They're examples. The reason why I've got this here is if you are representing an organization who's thinking of who's got a product already that can be used to reduce food waste, or you've got, for example, a frozen section, which can be encouraged, where we can encourage consumers to buy more frozen food, or you have a corporate social responsibility budget where you would like to spend on consumers to reduce food waste, or with your own staff members to encourage them to reduce food waste, feel free to reach out to us and we can help you design those interventions and plan it out and also evaluate those interventions. Thank you so much. Nick, over to you.
Thank you, Cami. That was great. Some really good tips there. Moving on to the next section, in the circular economy, we need to figure out what to do with the unavoidable waste that's generated from the production and consumption of our food. That doesn't mean that we all need to start eating peelings, pips, stones, and husks, but these offcuts and leftovers from food production may still contain valuable nutrients and properties that can be transformed into other products. So this then's the really cool world of upcycling. And here to give an overview of how food businesses can transform their unavoidable waste into new products is Francesca Goodman-Smith from our Transform program. Over to you, Francesca.
Thanks, Nick, and thank you everyone for joining us today. It's a very exciting time of the year for us in the food waste scene, and over the years it's just been fantastic seeing more and more businesses and individuals and organizations join this community. So yeah, thank you for being here and for joining us in this celebration. So hopefully I can give you a couple of insights into the world of upcycled food. Here we go. So we've just heard from Gami about the importance of preventing and reducing food waste, which is, the actions at the top of our food waste hierarchy. And along with that, we want to keep as much food as possible as food for human consumption. So in this version of the hierarchy, you can see it also includes donation of food to people in need, and also this area called upcycled food, which is converting food products that would otherwise go to waste into new, exciting foods. So being able to keep them within the food system. So the official definition of upcycled food is foods that use ingredients that would otherwise not have gone to human consumption, are procured and produced using verifiable supply chains, and have a positive impact on the environment. So this definition was designed by a group of academics, industry players, policymakers in the US in 2019. So it's a widely accepted and adopted definition. And since then, we've just seen the trend around upcycling grow and grow. So over the last few years, Whole Food Markets have been naming upcycling in their top 10 food trends. It was named in the top 10 in 2021, and then this year it made it to number 2. So we're just seeing positive growth there. And then in terms of economic growth, in 2019, a Forbes report modeled the potential value of the upcycled food sector to be around $46.7 billion US. The latest figures around that from 2021 show that it would be around 53.7 billion. And then you can see this figure out here to 2031, which is around 97. So huge, huge economic potential for businesses to, utilize all food that is being produced and create new, interesting products for consumers as well. So I recently have been off on an adventure supported by Fight Food Waste and also the Winston Churchill Memorial Trust, to go and travel around different parts of the world and learn about upcycled food initiatives there. So I thought I would take this opportunity to just share with you a couple of those insights from this international tour, as well as some local examples too. So the tour consisted of 2 parts, really. The first part was a month in the US, going to all sorts of different states, going to conferences, including the ReFed conference, which is one of the biggest global food waste events. And then to research facilities, to visit businesses, site tours. Then I headed over to the UK and Europe to look at some initiatives over there as well. So one of the really exciting things I was interested in unpacking was the upcycled food certification, which is available in the US and Canada at the moment. So that is a way for businesses to communicate to consumers that these products are made from food that would otherwise go to waste. And I've actually got a sample right here. Sorry, I've got my fake background on. Hold it back a little bit, see if we can get it into focus. And there's the little label just here. So you can see it on the screen as well. So there's now over 400 products in the US and Canada that are certified, and just fantastic growth around this. So it's an area that we're exploring, whether there's an opportunity to bring this to Australia and make this available for food businesses here. I thought I'd talk about the role of retailers because, you know, retailers have such a touch point with various parts of the food supply chain. And I wanted to share a couple of initiatives that some of our international and local retailers are doing to support upcycling. So Kroger in the US, they've got an innovation fund to support upcycled food businesses to develop products. At Whole Food Markets and Jumbo and Sprouts, so these are across Europe and the US, they're stocking full ranges of upcycled food with, you know, 20, 30 products available. Really exciting. Lidl in the Netherlands are also putting in place long-term supply agreements with businesses who are doing sustainable food initiatives, but including upcycling, so that they can have surety over their market, and they've got that long-term contract so they can put investment into their supply chains and scale up. So that's also a really positive way that retailers are supporting this movement. Then here in Australia, Harris Farm Markets, they create their own upcycled products out of surplus. So this product here in the middle is a pesto that is made out of herbs that are surplus and not sold in time. And then we have a fantastic initiative at the CRC, which is a collaboration between a startup, which is Leaf Protein Co., and Woolworths, and also Perfection Fresh, where they're looking at turning leafy green material into a high protein product. So that's a collaboration initiative that's enabling the upcycled food sector to really grow. So when we talk about growth, we're talking about scale, really. In order for this to be successful as a food waste reduction initiative, we need it to achieve scale. And a great example that I was lucky enough to see in the US was this partnership. So Anheuser-Busch, massive beer producer, produce millions of tons of spent brewer's grain every year. And so they have started a company, like a subsidiary company called Evergrain, where they create a protein isolate out of that brewer's spent grain. And they're co-located. So they have an Evergrain factory, and that has a direct processing line that takes the spent grain from the main factory over to Evergrain to produce these new products. This was a huge investment, $100 million investment, but they really backed that idea, and the products that are being created are really innovative and exciting, and they've seen a lot of success there. In terms of scaling as well, just making sure those supply chain partnerships are really tight and really matched up. So a couple of examples from the US, we've got Renewal Mill. They make a flour product out of okara, which is the byproduct from tofu production. And they partnered with Seven Sundays, which is a cereal company, to create this upcycled breakfast cereal. So that was a partnership between an ingredient supplier and a finished food manufacturer. Another really great partnership is this one here between Regrained, who are one of the pioneering upcycled food companies in the US, and Kroger. And they have incorporated the upcycled brewer's spent grain flour into an own label bread product. So that really enables scale, because that's opening the door to the retail environment and utilizing it through an own brand opportunity. Finished food products aren't the only way to achieve this. So creating ingredients also allows a huge amount of scale to be obtained. So a couple of examples here. There's a really innovative company in France called Green Spot Technologies, and they make powders out of surplus fruit and vegetables. and they can be used in all sorts of different food applications. There's a partnership here between Kerry Ingredients and Regrained to make a crisp product that can go into snack foods, and it also has additional health benefits. And then this last one on the side here is Food Fellows. That is a tomato-based product that a really large tomato producer in the Netherlands create out of their product that is not fit for sale in a retail environment because of product specifications. So they've actually created a whole new product to make sure they can utilize that surplus. Sorry, went too far. So, coming up with all of these ideas and trialing different things and trying to figure out where the market is best suited sometimes needs a bit of support. So one of the other things I did on my tour was go around to lots of different research and development organizations to get insights about how they're supporting businesses. And of course, at Fight Food Waste CRC, we're also supporting businesses to do that R&D process. So there's a lot of different avenues for that kind of support. So in the US, Matson is a commercial company who support R&D, product development for businesses. And then the universities are also very well set up. And then WRAP in the UK, which is a public-private partnership, also do sort of sector-wide support and deliver through voluntary agreement programs as well. And of course, us here in Australia with our Cooperative Research Centre and the Australian Food Pact. This is just a little overview of some of the upcycled food products projects that we are supporting the delivery of at the moment here in Australia through the CRC. Across all sorts of different product categories, from horticulture to seafood to grains, and really looking at the opportunities to get as much value out of those foods and keep them within the food system. So if you are interested in either utilizing upcycled ingredients, partnering with other organizations, or you have a waste stream that you think could be useful for upcycling, please come and talk to us and we can help brainstorm some ideas about how you can be part of this solution and maximize this opportunity for yourselves as well.
Thanks, Francesca. That was brilliant. Every time I hear you speak, there's new products on the market. I don't know why it's gone back to them. So our final section on taking action today, we'll look at the Australian Food Pact. Signing up to the Pact is a great way for food businesses to demonstrate leadership by committing to working with us to reduce both their own waste and any associated waste in the supply chain. The Australian Food Pact is a voluntary agreement that, instead of regulation, follows an internationally proven method of tackling food waste, focusing on prevention, reduction, donation, and food chain transformation and innovation. Many of our biggest food companies have already committed to the Pact and are making significant progress on reducing the amount of edible food that ends up in landfill. Aside from the signatories, the Pact is also a great example of partnership working, as it involves stakeholders and agencies from across the public, private, and not-for-profit sectors. These include federal and local government, 4 major food rescue organisations in Australia, various industry bodies, and Australian and international food waste reduction organisations. So on a practical basis, the Pact achieves food waste reduction by taking a 3-step target, measure, act approach. This is a proven way to achieve fairly rapid results. In terms of targets, targets set ambition, ambition motivates action. Signatories adopt explicit food loss and waste reduction targets, preferably aligned with the International Sustainable Development Goal Target 12.3, which is to halve food waste by 2030. In terms of measurement, the old adage, what gets measured gets managed, is true for food loss and waste as well. After setting a target, businesses need to measure their food loss and waste to identify the hotspots that need action publish the results to inspire others, and monitor to track progress over time. Ultimately, action's what really matters. Based on the information gathered from the measurement of their food waste, pact signatories develop and implement strategies for tackling the food waste hotspots. And that ranges from on-farm food losses to household food waste and everything in between that. So how it actually works in practice is just initially signatories define a 12-month time period and the scope of operations to include. Ideally, this would cover all food-related operations that the business owns or controls in Australia. Step 2 is to quantify the tonnage of food and associated inedible parts sent to a range of food waste destinations. So that may be anaerobic digestion, composting, incineration, whether it's applied to the land, sent to landfill, or disposed of in sewer and wastewater treatment. Thirdly, food waste is then expressed as a percentage of the total food handled by the business. And this gives us a really good idea of the size of the opportunity in financial terms. It helps to release and encourage action within the business. The next step is to separately quantify the tonnage of food waste sent to non-waste destinations. So that's food not sold as intended, may be repurposed. So it may be, for example, redistributed to people through food rescue or a commercial redistributor. It may be sent to animal feed, or harking back to Francesca's, it may be transformed into upcycled food or feed ingredients or products. And the final stage is to report back on food waste data, and that forms the basis of developing a food waste action plan, which is designed to tackle the waste based on the solid evidence that's been produced previously. So a key part of being a pact signatory is reporting back on food waste measurements in the business. The first year of the pact reporting had data from 10 leading food businesses and produced some interesting points. For example, when not sold as intended, more food was repurposed than was wasted. So it was donated or sent to animal feed or upcycled, as opposed to going to landfill or some of the other waste destinations. In total, almost 54 million meal equivalents were donated by our 10 food businesses in 2022. And of the food that went to waste destinations, 89% was classed as edible, which means that the waste was pretty much avoidable. The top 3 causes of the waste were food not being to specifications, which was 34%, food being past its expiry date, so 33%, or damaged, 15%. And the food type that was most wasted was bread. So you can see just from this quick snapshot that there's a big opportunity around food waste for food businesses. And to help frame this opportunity, this slide provides sort of estimated figures for the lost value embodied in food waste and repurposed food for a typical manufacturing business. The percentages shown here are anonymized averages from our baseline data reporting across our initial pact signatory cohort. So if you work in a food manufacturing business, you can use these percentages to estimate a ballpark figure for the potential financial opportunity that tackling food waste offers your business. So for a business with a total revenue of around $230 million, the typical lost value of food wasted will be just under 7 million, with an associated disposal cost of almost 1.4 million. The median lost value of surplus food that's repurposed, so sent to animal feed or turned into lower value products, is around 5% of total food revenue. So that's an additional just over 11 million, which gives us a total estimated cost to this anonymous atypical business of around $20 million for food not being sold as intended. We've covered a lot of ground in today's webinar. There's a lot more that we haven't even touched on. So just want to leave you with a quick summary of why we need your help to fight food waste. One, reducing food waste is one of the most environmentally friendly actions that individuals and businesses can take. Two, by taking action on food waste, you'll be adopting a leadership position and lighting the way for others to follow. Three, reducing food waste saves money, it's simple as that, and a lot of it potentially. Four, you get to collaborate, share experiences and ideas with some amazing like-minded people. And five, which is really compelling, throwing perfectly good food away when people are going hungry every day is just wrong. So let's end it together. If you've been inspired or motivated today to take action, or you'd like to learn more about food waste in general or what we do as an organisation, here are some ways to connect with us. Cami, Francesca and I want to thank you all for giving up your time to listen to us today. We hope you learned something, and more importantly, we hope you'll take action. Thank you very much, and hopefully see you again.